If workplace culture is your jam, you're in the right place. Check out this episode of Culture Secrets, the podcast dedicated to creating workplaces where both employees and the companies thrive. Today's guest is someone I'm especially excited to welcome to the Culture Secrets podcast because he's not just someone I admire from a distance. He's someone I've actually learned from personally. I first met Mike Kim through one of his workshops back when I had written my first couple of books and was trying to figure out how to turn all those ideas, stories, and experiences into something bigger, something that could actually become a business, not just a passion project. And what I appreciated about Mike then is the same thing that I appreciate about him now. He's real world, genuine, practical, and honest in the best kind of way. He doesn't overcomplicate things. He doesn't hide behind buzzwords, and he doesn't hold back when people need to hear the truth that will help them move forward. Mike is a business strategist, speaker, author of You Are the Brand, and one of the most respected voices in personal branding and messaging. He's worked with some of the biggest names and thought leaders out there, but what stands out most to me is that he remains humble, approachable, and truly human. And that's why I wanted to have him on the show. Because when we talk about culture, we often talk about values, vision, engagement, and leadership. But underneath all of that is trust. And trust is shaped by how leaders show up, how they communicate, how they tell the truth, how they share their stories, and how consistent they are between what they say and how they live. In a world where AI can help us create more content faster than ever before, I think we need a deeper conversation about what it means to keep our human voice, our lived experience, and leadership presence intact. Mike has lived a lot in his years, professionally, personally, spiritually, and entrepreneurially. And that's what makes his wisdom so usable, real, and relatable. So today, we're going to talk about leadership brands, trust, reinvention, voice, and why the most powerful thing you bring to work may still be the one thing that no technology can replicate. And that's you. I know I met you because of what you're most famous for in my world, and that's the brand, You Are the Brand. And so when we apply that to leadership, not just entrepreneurship or marketing, but to leadership in general, what do you think that really means today?
I think the word brand can get in the way of what we're really trying to convey when we say it. And it's really just about your reputation. Like, what do people say about you when you're not in the room? What do they say about you between each other when no one else is listening? That's really the reputation. We've all had leaders that we love. We've all had leaders that we don't like at all. We all have leaders that we avoid. Sometimes it's a blend of all three of those things and many more things. But usually it boils down to like one dominant trait and one secondary one, because that's all we have room for in our brains. Oh, he's a good leader. Well, what does that mean? Oh, he's fair.
Yep.
Oh, okay. If you say he's fair, that also probably means that he's not a pushover, that he's strict, that he holds you to some standards. Oh, he's really kind, but you don't want to mess with him. That's just sort of how we talk. So I think what's happened, especially because of social media all these years, is that people have become an online personality, and that online aspect has separated us from what we're really just trying to convey, which is just your reputation. So when a leader has a certain reputation of a bad temper or chewing people out, but they also get results, the team will usually baseline that sometimes into not so nice language. Like, dude, that guy's just an a-hole. I mean, but he gets things done. I was recently listening to an interview with Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, and he was talking about Steve Jobs. I had no idea that he had done so much work with Steve Jobs earlier on in his career. That's how he became rich. He had a software company, and they were selling this video game, The Oregon Trail or whatever it was. I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
And O'Leary was basically like, yeah, that guy was a total expletive. He would talk to me like this, and that. He would talk down to me like this, and that. But dude was always right. He was always right. You can't argue with it. And like, is that a good leader? Is that not a good? It just depends who you ask. So brand, right? Brand, identity, reputation. That's it.
And I think a lot of times people wrap that up. And when you hear that, they also think of it's just self-promotion. And so, but on the flip side of it, I'm a VP in the organization that I work for, my day job. And, that comes with some responsibility, and like people automatically assume there's a role, there is a way that things are done and everything because of that title that comes with it. Mm-hmm. And so leadership branding to me is also important in the fact that I want people to really understand who I am the values side of it, that what really matters to me and what I hope for my team. So it's not necessarily self-promotion when I'm talking about it and when I'm doing workshops and everything like that. It really is the core of what I think make good leaders, just like you were talking about the interview. Like, the perception that people have of people is what you see in front of them. And so how is it best for leaders in a workplace to go about representing themselves and making sure that people understand, I do have these ideas, I do have these values that are important, and I want people to embrace them, and it not be self-promotional or aggrandizing in some kind of way?
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. If I were to like bring that down to street level, when I talk with corporate leaders, I'm like, hey, personal brand. And we talk about all this stuff. Here's what they say, Chellie, but I don't want to be an influencer. That's really what it reduces down to, right?
You
And
are
like,
every day
yeah,
in front of
you
people.
are an influencer. You are an influential person, but that word has been hijacked by this online internet culture, right? And really what we're saying about that, if what I don't want to be an influencer is not what they're really trying to say. I don't want to be inauthentic is what they're really, really saying. I don't want to be known for, when they say I don't want to be self-promotional, I'm like, yeah, you do. You want to be recognized at work. You want to be recognized for a good decision that you made or contributing to a project. That is self-promotional as well. You just don't want to be seen as online Instagram influencer that's hoarding for attention. Recognition is different than attention. So when I try to work with executives, team members, I'm doing a lot more in the corporate space these days along those lines. You want to be recognized. I can't think of a single person who wants to have their work go unrecognized, especially when they've done a good job. So this idea of self-promotion, I think that is a misnomer. They just don't want to be seen as like a used car salesman or like an attention hog. So I think this kind of leads into a lot of around what we're seeing on LinkedIn these days. And it's just everybody's like this thought leader or whatever. Yeah, because they're sharing insights and ideas, but they need to communicate values. That's the more important thing, because AI can spit out all that content for you. It can write whatever you want it to. It can curate 20 of the top business books and write something that makes it sound like you came up with it. But what are your values? Because ultimately, influence isn't like curried through knowledge, right? It's through values. It's how you lead the team. It's the things that make you who you are from a personality standpoint and where you stand. And I think that's what I try to move teams forward on. Don't major on your knowledge or your insights when talking about identity and reputation and curating that. Lead with your values, because at the end of the day, everybody has a brand. You might as well own it. Everybody has an opinion about you as a leader, as a team member, as a colleague. Everyone's got an opinion about you, good, bad, or somewhere in between. So you might as well own it. And if you're going to own it with something that is intrinsic to who you are, not something that can be updated with the latest knowledge update or 2.0 upgrade on an app, right? Lead with your values, because your values probably aren't going to change over time. At least the good ones aren't going to change. I don't meet a lot of people who are really generous and then become super stingy, right? So you want to lead with that. That's how I frame that.
I want to talk a little bit more about that a little bit, because I think one of the best ways that we can share our values is by sharing our stories. And a lot of people think, no, that's personal. I keep personal. I keep work. But in my world and the way I work and the way my brain thinks is like, I'm all one person. What happens outside work has made me who I am, and what happens in work makes me who I am. And I think one of the best ways that I'm able to show my team what matters to me and how I handle things are through sharing stories, whether those are wins, whether those are how I've screwed up before and how you fixed it and how you come back from it, and even the things that matter. So when you're working in corporate and that kind of thing with different leaders, what is your opinion on sharing stories and the value that they have to bring your team together and then give them that insights of what really matters to you?
Yeah, I think the stories, like everything is contextual in that regard, right? But what is the purpose of sharing the story? So the way that I look at it, and because I've spent so much of my career in storytelling for marketing, right? Marketing people, marketing their ideas, marketing their services is very much predicated on who they are as a person. If you have 10 lawyers and they're all the same skill wise to close on your real estate property, what differentiates them from one another is how you connect with them. Do you just like this guy or this gal? There's something about their vibe, right? That you really take into account that we're not always aware of. So is the story that you're sharing in to connect with that team member? So you as a VP, if you're sharing a story about a failure, what I would read that as is that it's multi-tiered. You're sharing a story about your own failure after maybe they've goofed up, and you're extending empathy to them, letting them know you're not alone. Number two, letting them know you're not mad. I mean, you want to correct it, but you're not going to, scold them or anything. Go sit in the corner. You are connecting with them because you recognize at that time, if you can be a salve to the wound instead of salt in the wound, you are going to grow in your connection with this team member or this colleague in that moment. And that story is the way that you do that. It is the bridge by which you can do that, right? Is it a story to rally the troops? This is how our company started. This is where we're going. This is the big vision a story can galvanize a team. Sometimes stories are just trauma dumping. That's not helpful. So what I'm saying is that, like, when you think about a story, there's always usually, if you can actually look deeper into it, there is some sort of purpose behind the story. When you're sharing a fun story at a networking event or a team dinner or something, you're just doing it for rapport, or you're doing it to break the ice. If you're one of the social people on the team, right? You're just doing it to make everybody comfortable. Or when you share a funny story about a coworker when you're celebrating a big win, you're doing that to get everybody to laugh and to celebrate this other person. There's always purposes behind the story. I think what you're saying is so true in that people, when they hear about, oh, you got to share your story, they automatically think it's to promote myself. And what I'm saying is that no, I just rattled off 4 or 5 different ways and reasons and purposes for which we share stories every day in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to give a more well-rounded version and understanding of what storytelling at work really entails. And that's it.
Yeah, it does so much for connecting. And it's funny, I tell people, like, when I got the VP initials after my name, like, all of a sudden people that I could used to have conversations with in the break room would be like, as soon as you walk in, they're like, zip, not going to say anything right now because the VP's here. And I'm like, I'm still the same person that I was 2 weeks ago that you were having all these conversations with. And so I'm still the same one that you went to lunch with. It's like, and so it was funny, and so story for me is easy because that's what I do for a living. And I'm also, I don't have a problem of making myself the butt of the story either. And like, I mean, I've grown up doing that. And so it's kind of one of those things. It was the easiest and fastest way for me to connect with people and let them know that, hey, I'm still just me. And like the same thing that mattered to me, I still love my football. I still love that. All those things are still the same. We can still talk about that. There's all this other side of me too, that, that I'm bringing to the table that I want you to know. And also I hope it helps my team as they develop to learn how to relate to people that they're going to be leading down the road. Like when I'm gone, there's going to be someone that's sitting in this chair. And so how can I develop that team and make sure that they're all still moving forward and learning from each other and still have that kind of cohesion that's left. The other thing that I tell people a lot is, especially working through the culture issues and things that I've really kind of focused on lately, is that leaders send signals all of the time. And the signals sometimes speak louder than our words. And our words can be signals too, but a lot of times it's the signals that we put out there, whether we've answered an email or whether we've put somebody off or whether we made them feel diminished in a meeting or whatever else is happening. And so those signals sometimes really impact how people feel about a leader, whether they're authentic, whether they're trustworthy, whether they're worth following. Can you maybe take your take on that and then maybe share an experience where signals have been interpreted one way or the other for you?
Well, yeah, they happen to all of us, right? I think it was, I'm thinking about, it was a breakdown about communication. I would think it was something like, was it Albert Morabian or something like that. He did a study. It was something like 55% is body language, 38% is like your tone of voice, and just 7 are spoken words. And you think about that and how we have 7%ed our communication because of these screens. I FaceTime someone, I jump on Zoom with them. We're talking right now through this platform, but we're both looking at screens. We're looking at a screen essentially. And we can only see our body language from our shoulder up, right? So much communication gets lost. And I think what's happened now is that in the workplace, especially when people are physically together, they don't realize how much their body language and their tone of voice actually carries weight. So here we are on these phones, these devices. We are operating in that 7% window all the time we're on that phone, and we've lost the ability to understand like our body language and our tone of voice is really important. So we actually become worse communicators despite becoming more on social media and having all this written content and AI. I have always tried to be cognizant of this because I'm like 6'3". Most people don't realize I'm that tall. I get that all the time. I didn't know you were this tall. I'm like, yeah, because we only see each other on Zoom. And yeah, and then voice, I can project. I had a music background, like, my voice can get loud. So I realized that combination, if I step into somebody, like when we meet, like I can be a little bit imposing depending on, their size. So I try to compensate by softening my voice like this. I'm like, hey, nice to meet you. Hey, nice to meet you. And like, I would just realize that about myself. So I think leaders, if you couple that on top of all of that you have a position, you have VP after your name or C-suite, whatever after your name, or doctor in front of your name, or whatever credentials after your name, you have to realize that you're taking up a lot of authoritative space is the way that I look at it. It is why when you became the VP, the same people who saw you 2 weeks ago see you as a person, but they now see you through a role first. And it's important to understand roles and differentiate between them because companies are just armies without the violence. That's the way I look at it. Right. Well, hopefully without the violence and the bloodshed, right? You have corporate takeovers and corporate espionage and stuff. But what is a company? A company is really a military term, a company of soldiers. And so if they don't respect the role, it's life and death. When we come into work during the week, it's profit and loss. It's not necessarily life and death, but those structures I think have been hardwired into us as a species, for as long as we've been around. So what I try when I work with clients along those lines, work with leaders, and I'll say, hey, I'm not just talking about maybe your physical presence or your voice or anything like that, big, small, loud, soft, whatever it is. I'm really talking about the authoritative weight of what you carry. If we were to scale you on a scale of 1 to 10, you get 5 points alone just for having C-suite on your title, right? And then you've got, this big kind of booming personality or this really quiet, incisive, but you're so smart that everyone already feels stupid when you're in the room with them because you're so smart. Like, dude, that's like another 5 points. You've already maxed out. So we've got to learn to adjust on some of these things. If I can close with that particular conversation point with one example, I've always wondered, what if I were as strong as Superman and you're just trying to open a door? Like, does he ever crush the door because they don't realize how strong he is? They never account for that in the comic books. Like, that would be like me picking up a feather, and we as leaders, I don't think we always realize that we carry that kind of weight.
Kind of that same time, talking about the weight that leaders carry. So you've had a lot of opportunity to work with some big leaders out there. What do you think has been their key, or maybe what have you seen are some of the keys as you have worked with those different people that has allowed them to stay grounded, approachable, and just kind of human as they've been building their influence and becoming some of the biggest names in some of the spaces, like leadership spaces and things like that you're talking?
What I would say honestly is not all of them are very balanced or grounded or approachable. And the umbrella over that is that it just depends what phase or season of career and life they're in. I've met very content people who are in their 30s or 40s, and they've reached that Zen period of their life. maybe for a little while before they pick up the second thing that they're going to do or climb that second mountain of life. And I've met leaders who are in their 70s who still think they're 25 and act like that. They're still doing the same things. They're still running around with their hair on fire that way. Or they are the gravitational center of everything that happens in the company, the organization, the team, you name it. I do think for high performers, if they are leaders of that stature to begin with, they have an engine that most other people don't have. They have something in that furnace, or like shoveling coal into that fire of the old school trains, locomotives, and that thing has to be fed all the time. And I'm like, hey, instead of burning coal, maybe we switch to wood. Maybe it's something different. Maybe we just switch the tanks to some fuel instead. You know, you're just really running on a different kind of fuel. And so those are conversations I often have with leaders about, like, what does that look like? I'm not asking you to slow down. I'm just asking you, can we burn a different type of fuel? Is it sales and market penetration and market share? Does it have to be that? Or are you starting to see that you're getting much more fulfillment just in that 10-minute conversation you have with somebody in the hallway? At somebody who might be 2 or 3 rungs down from you, but that really kind of touched your soul in a way. Let's pay attention to that. You don't have to restructure your whole position or your workday, but let's pay attention to that. And a lot of times, Chellie, it's just helping them become more aware of what's trying to speak to them. I ask them a lot, especially people who've been tenured for a while. What is life asking of you right now? What is life asking of you right now? There is a difference between a job and a vocation. You have a job and you've got certain tasks and you've got responsibilities and you make certain decisions and things like that. And a lot of times the things that make you good at that job or help you do that job really well aren't on the job description sheet. And that's actually your vocation. And one of the exercises that I use with clients a lot is, like, whether they're, mid-management, senior management, whatever it is, wherever they are in the organization, write down everything that you do at work, including the things that are off the job description. Have you ever hosted a company event? Have you ever had to organize a happy hour? Have you ever had to comfort somebody in the hallway after they just got reamed out by their supervisor, right? And you just kind of take that list and you jot it all down, and they realize when they cross off the end of that list, they really have done a lot of things that are not on the job description. For me, like, it would be like, I taught high school students. These are just various jobs that I've had over my life. I counsel students on their grades at that after school academy. I wrote curriculums. I worked at a church as their music director, so I had to recruit music team volunteers. I marketed the albums that we created. I hosted conferences for that place. And then if you just cross out the end of every one of those sentences, it reads something like, I taught, I counseled, I wrote, I recruited, I marketed, and I hosted. Wow, that sounds like a pretty capable person. And I don't think most people realize how many competencies they have. And if you look at just that category of stuff, it probably wouldn't shock most people. Mike tends to mentor a lot of people. He tends to coach a lot of people. He tends to facilitate discussions for groups. And that was never on any of the job descriptions that I had. So that is what I mean by, like, a vocation. And I think people who have been around for a while in their organization or in a certain lane, when they feel like they don't have the passion or the drive anymore, or they're switching fuel to make the locomotive go forward, it's not really about, oh, need to hit the next sales goal or get the next promotion. You're playing by, like, the previous era's rules. You need to update to what life is asking of you, if that makes sense. And then the fulfillment comes in. Then the job or the position becomes a vehicle through which they can do those things in that organization or elsewhere if they want to move on.
So you kind of touched on the thing I know about you is that you've had a lot of different roles. And I love the way you put it. Is like, just take off the last part. So look at the actual verb piece of it, the coach, the teach, the all these different kind of things. Myself, I've been through several iterations of me. I am definitely not who I was when I was 20. I'm not who I was when I'm 35. I'm now in my 50s, and for whatever reason feel like I've finally hit, like, this is me. This is what I should have been doing all of this time and everything. And like, I think there's lots of people out there, like, especially those of us that have a little bit of an entrepreneurial streak in us, but then also, the professional who's like moving through workplace and that kind of thing. But then there's also the personal side of like, what are you doing for you to grow you, to really embrace who you are? But I think there's a lot of people who that fear of something new stops them from like just going for it, or either they're afraid that people are going to think I've lost my mind if I do this, or I don't have the degree that I'm supposed to have to do this, or whatever. So if you had some advice for someone, or someone that, from someone that's kind of reinvented themselves a couple of times and dipped their toes into different ponds to see what worked and what was the best place for you at that time of life, to go about that, to explore that, how would you kind of talk somebody through those decisions that they were making?
A lot of the decisions, like, life is all about decisions, right? So one of the things that's helped me over the years is to just learn some different types of mental models. There's a great book by Shane Fanning, I think his last name is, literally on mental models, on decision-making frameworks. A couple that have really helped me over time. And I totally get what you're saying, because I think sometimes when we think and weigh through trying something new, we think of it as a one-way door. Like, this is it forever. I'm getting married. And it's really, most decisions are not that. It's usually a two-way door. I think Jeff Bezos is the one who sort of popularized this, but the idea is that like a one-way door isn't necessarily something that is totally permanent, but is really difficult to walk back. Like selling your company and then wanting to buy it back from the people you just sold it to, probably not going to happen. Getting married and then walking that back, there's a whole multi-billion-dollar industry about making that difficult for people, right? Getting divorced. You divorce somebody, you're probably not going to marry them again, that same person, right? So these feel very permanent. They're not always irreversible, but they're very expensive and painful oftentimes to reverse. Most of the other decisions that we have to make are two-way doors. And that's where I invite people to experiment with those two-way doors as a way of exercising that muscle of experimentation. When you're in a role for a really extended period of time, the same kind of thing, your life feels a little bit like it's stagnant, or maybe you're just not trying new things. This is not the time to go climb Mount Everest or run a marathon. Like, you're going to sprain something, you're going to break something. Do micro expansive activities. Try a new drink. Why not? Try a different type of water. Right? Buy a different pair of shoes. Right? Try, like, if you like I always tell my business clients, test a new price increase. Just try it. It's not the end of the world. Try a new ice cream, whatever it is. Not sticking, you can always go back. And I think that's where most of the paralysis starts, right? Where you start treating two-way doors as if it's a one-way door. And that's the danger of it. One of the other things that I think about too, in helping people differentiate that, is there's this great filter that I came across, and it's based on this diner in New York City called the Lindy Diner. So it's called the Lindy effect. It's a filter which basically says the longer something is endured, the more likely it will keep enduring. So there's this deli, this diner in New York City near where I live. It's gone now. It doesn't exist anymore. But in the mid 1900s, comedians and showbiz people would hang out there. And they noticed that the longer a show was on Broadway, like Cats or whatever, right, the more likely it was going to be there. And they would start to say, that's Lindy. That is Lindy. That is going to be around for a long time. And I think we've lost a sense of that because of internet culture, because of social media. I was an 80s kid, so I'm used to things being very physical. Like, I'm technically a Zennial, I think it is, in between Gen X, but not a millennial in that like 6 or 7 year period. So I grew up with physical things, phone with a cord on it. And then I sent my first email my freshman year in college, which is kind of crazy to think. And now we have AI. And my generation, we've had this whiplash going through all these sorts of technological revolutions. And I think that we've lost sight of that. Like, if you're going to try something new or go down a path and your word is not going to be there, chances are if it's been very long standing, it will continue to endure. And that's just a very helpful way to look at it. People will probably always go out to restaurants. They will probably always read books. They will probably always do these things. So like when you're thinking about like just taking different experiments and different experiences in your life, the things that you've always done, you probably are always going to do, experiment in other ways. So yeah, those are just some ways that I look at it.
I think that's fun. And I'm sitting here thinking kind of how that relates to a lot of technology and everything today too. Is like there's a lot of fear around all the new things. It's like AI, like we were talking about before we actually started recording the podcast. You're doing a lot of work around that right now, or some of the things that I've read recently about that you've been putting out. We talk about it a lot at work. Like, how can we use it to make things more efficient? What are the processes that we can look at? I'm also a writer on the side, and there's a whole discussion about AI and writing and how, like editing and putting thoughts together and using it for idea generation and different things like that. So I want to kind of go down that path with you for just a minute too. We have this tool now, AI, that's out there that can write posts and emails for us, scripts, speeches, whatever. It can learn us. It can mimic our tone, that kind of thing. So it's almost like it sounds like it could be them, but is it really, kind of thing? So what do you think AI can really help us do? And what can it never replace when it comes to that leadership voice that's out there?
AI, I tell my clients, I tell my audience, AI is a calculator for words. AI is the duct tape that ties all of these apps and programs together that no one figured out how to do before. Let me unpack that for a moment. I have an iPhone. A lot of us have smartphones. Most everybody has a smartphone, iPhone, Samsung, whatever. If you really think about this, Apple really dropped the ball when it came to AI. I mean, Siri is terrible. It's a terrible product, right? We all know this. But if you think about your iPhone, and, I don't have my phone on me, but, you're holding this device, and this device has your email, all your email accounts. It has your text messages. It has all of your social media apps. It has the app that you book restaurant reservations on. It has your calendar. It has your photos. You should theoretically be able to say to this device, Siri, tell me what I have to do today. Scan all my text messages, all my emails, all my calendars, all my social media apps, and just tell me. It can't do it. So OpenAI or Claude has now come along, especially Claude Cowork, right? Some of these productivity tools. And is now the duct tape between all these things. Because if you use Cowork, you can integrate it with your Gmail account. You can integrate it with your calendar. You can integrate it with your Zoom account, everything. Now, I'm simplifying the argument, but I think people think AI is so special and so transformative, and it is an incredible technology. But at its essence, it's doing things that Siri should have done 10 years ago. That's it. That's the way that I look at it. So if that feature lived on my phone and did a good job, I'd probably stick with that phone forever. It's just too easy it's almost like a virtual secretary. It's just telling me everything I need to know. I would not ask my secretary how to close a sale. I would not ask my secretary what I should say to this person. Give me a bunch of ideas. It might help. It might reflect. But I push my clients, especially because I'm a writer as well. You have to be the source of truth. You have to be the source of creation. No matter how complex the AI is, it has no idea what I'm going to do in the next 30 seconds. Literally in the next 30 seconds, it has no idea what I'm going to do. I could knock over this whole screen and just leave this call. I could just take this coffee cup and just smash it. There's an infinite number of things that I could do. It doesn't know. So anytime everyone says, like, people say like, oh man, it's really predicting me. I was like, no, it's not. It's just making projections based on past patterns. Why would you use that to create something new. What I really push in the workspace, like in the workplace, we talk a lot about, the AI and how these are the things that are not going to be replaced by humans. And if anything, the deeper down the chain it goes, the more human the skills become. And that's where we need to focus on developing those skills. An AI can transcribe my calls and write summaries and write notes. Yes, it should do that. It can't help me get along with Ted, who it's never met, and it's not a human, right? It's like, why are we asking an inanimate object, a calculator, how to talk to this person? It's better if we develop those human skills. Now, it can give you insights, sure, right? And people are uploading literally screenshots of text messages with friends or dates they've gone on and asking an AI what it means, which is kind of wild. I'm not against it. I get it, but it's lazy thinking. We have a whole chapter in a book I put out recently called Own Your Brand, Own Your Career on AI. And we list 7 traits there. But the one I want to draw the most attention to, because I think that's the most important thing, is taste. And what I mean by taste is, like, taste is hard to define, but it's like this ability, this instinct to taste, to pick out what feels right. That is such an indefinite explanation. It's so vague. Yeah, welcome to humanity. That's how humans are. We are vague. We are intuitive. We have lived experience. We have cultural context. I'm not going to wear a Boston Red Sox jersey to a Yankee game or vice versa. It's just stupid. You're going to get beat up. You're going to get in a fight with fans. It's hard to teach, but you can feel it. And I think that's like, you as a leader, I know that there's no way you got to this position if you didn't have this, and you're probably using it even more. Ted's really ticked off today. Man, he got chewed out by, some of the earnings. Maybe not right now is not a good time to grill him on this other thing. Or actually, I think he can take it. I think this is a perfect time to challenge him. And I think that in the business world and the workplace, we hear about this, like this idea of taste, and you think it's just for artists or creative people, and it's not. It's the project manager who can read a spreadsheet or this data and say, no, this is what's going on here. This is the real story behind the numbers. We all have it. And that's what I want to push people to cultivate.
So it's kind of a lot like self-awareness too, I think, is that you have to be able to be reflective of yourself and know why you feel the way you feel, where things come from, how you're probably going to react to things. That's something that AI is never going to be able to do. Like it can give you some generalities, and it could eventually pick up, oh, you use these phrases over and over. So if I'm going to write something for you, then I'm going to incorporate these kind of words and these kind of feelings and everything. But I think that's something that we've kind of lost a little bit of doing that self-reflection and being self-aware and knowing, I know there's certain things that trigger me that I may need to go walk around the parking lot for a little bit before I have that conversation so I can get back in the right space before I, before I do these things or whatever it is. And I don't think AI or any of those kind of tools will ever really replace that. What do you, other than the scheduling and things like that, what do you think about, I know there's a big train of thought where people use them as a strategic partnership kind of thing, to ask them the questions, to walk them through if then this, like those kind of things. What do you think, how do you think it's doing in that kind of realm?
I think it depends on how well the questions are framed from the person using it. And also understanding that just because it gives me probabilities, it does not mean that is what's going to happen. To paint another analogy around this, a couple, there's a lot, and they're all very human analogies. Like I'm a sports guy. I like basketball, baseball, football. Those are sports I follow. In every major sport, in all 3 of those leagues, NFL, MLB, NBA, the old school players are saying, man, people are relying way too much on analytics. You have to have a gut feeling. Sometimes it's just a gut feeling as a coach or as a player that you're going to make that play, because otherwise you're just trying to map to what a robot would do. If that's what you do, that's the only outcomes you're going to get. A second example is Rick Rubin, who's one of the most iconic music producers of our generation, has done everyone from Elton John and Adele to the Beastie Boys, like a very wide range. He doesn't play an instrument. How is he one of the greatest music producers ever? He doesn't play an instrument. If you see some of the videos where he's working with these artists, like, no, it just needs to be bigger. No, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And this guy went to NYU. All he did was go out to the clubs and the bars and listen to music from the time he was a youngster. And he's able to make these judgment calls. I'm going to produce Johnny Cash as he is towards the end of his life. And we don't need any production on his voice because that gravelly tone is going to come out. Right. And Red Hot Chili Peppers, I need that LA sound. It needs to be very raw and in your face. He just knows how to generate these ideas. And one of the questions that I ask a lot of my clients is this, like, this is really interesting. Like, would you, I know we don't buy CDs anymore or albums or anything, but would you spend $15 like to buy a CD of music created by AI? Like, no. Okay. Would you spend $15 on a movie ticket to watch a movie that was completely created by a computer and take your kids to it? I was like, no. I'm like, okay, let's go one layer deeper. Would you post a headshot of yourself on your LinkedIn profile that was created 100% by AI? That's a really interesting game to play. They all say no. I'm like, why? You don't have to get a photo shoot. It'll dress you in whatever you want. Why does it matter? It looks pretty good.
Save you $300 too.
Yeah, you save $300, but you know what they say? Because it's not me. And we all know that instinctively, that's not me. This is, then I say, what's the difference between that and an Instagram filter? I asked them that. What's the difference between that and an Instagram filter? And they say, yeah, but that was like my original photo. That's actually me. Oh, what about airbrushing? What about makeup? Like, no, but that's actually me. See, just that little simple example. Then why are you putting all your thought leadership, all your content, all your ideas, running it solely through this machine when you haven't written a single word? It's a really interesting thought experiment. It's a really interesting game that I play with the clients. How much resistance they have to putting that out there because intrinsically they know that's not me. I didn't do that and I can't stand behind it. There are a few people in the world who are willing to do that. They're the fraudsters. They're the cheaters. They are the Milli Vanillis when I was a kid growing up, who won the Grammys and they were lip syncing, right? There are people who are willing to do that. Most are not. It has to originate from them for them to put on the filter, change the lighting. That's fine. But what if it's solely AI generated? We don't want to consume or put our name behind it, but that's what we put out in the world. It's such a weird paradox to me.
I think it's going to be really interesting to watch over the next few years, especially as the different platforms emerge and change, because some of them do things differently, better than others, and some of them are being made to do just specific things. And so I think it'll be really interesting to see. And I think that as leaders, I think how we become more intentional about doing the things that we do, asking those questions like, where is that line that I'm willing to draw? I'll use the filter, but I won't use the pick. Like, okay, so, is there that big of a difference or isn't there? And like, depending on where we fall out on that, I'll kind of get us ready to kind of close out. I've got two questions I want to ask. And the first one is on that intentionality. What is your message to a leader? Where should they start? If they're new to the career, if they're new in the workplace, if they're new to a team, or if they're building their own kind of empire, let's just say. How do they start with their message, building their message, their story, their values, their behaviors? What is the best way for them to start intentionally getting that out there for people?
You're familiar with some of my frameworks and stuff, but I always start with this little filter. It's a simple Venn diagram. And I've been surprised over the years, to be honest, at how people have found it really effective. I'm from Jersey, so we talk like this. The first question is, what pisses you off? The second is, what breaks your heart? And the third is, what's the problem you're trying to solve? At the intersection of those three answers is probably who you really are. and what you stand for. Going back to what I said about values, right? To phrase it another way, what pisses you off is the injustice that you see in the world. Like this is just ticks you off, right? What breaks your heart is the compassion you have for people. These are very human terms. And what is the problem you're trying to solve? That is either your business, that is your role, that is your job, that is the purpose of your organization. And if you really study founders, the great founders, like them or not, you can usually reverse engineer the answers to those questions. They have a mission. They're ticked off about something happening in the world that they don't think should happen, or they are brokenhearted about something that really, really affects them and they want to change that. And then they start a company, an army, a military, whatever, of people to address it. Mothers Against Drunk Driving, all the way to, grass-fed beef, all the way to childcare services, all the way to HR. Any of these things, actually, all of these things have a mission behind them. And I don't think you can go very long if your only driver is to make money and achieve fame. I think for a lot of people, if they're even wanting to do something new, they usually don't say, I want to do something new so I can make a ton of money. It's usually couched in something a little bit deeper than that. And I think we lose that. So I actually revisit those questions a lot, every couple of years. And I don't talk to an AI about it because it's just going to pattern match me. It's just going to pick little bits of past chats that I have in that thread or in the AI, and it's going to make me artificially feel that it understands me. That's not true. I will rather invest in a friend of mine or a coach to ask me questions along those lines. So they're not reading me through that 7% communication style of a screen and verbal. They're reading my body language. They're hearing my voice. They're seeing me wipe my hands with sweat when I get worked up about something. These are all things that I need a human being to reflect back to me. This is also why leaders in any context have to be able to pick up on those things. Because the data analysis will say we need to run this play on third down where we're inside the 20-yard line, but the stupid iPad doesn't know that your players are tired because they've been on the field for half an hour straight. It doesn't know. So I'm just shocked that people can't put AI in its proper place. It's a powerful tool. It's one that Apple should have invented 10 years ago on our phone. And it is like right now, I know it can do some incredible things, but for me, as just an everyday guy, that's how I view it. That's how I view it. I don't need it to be much more than what it is right now. I don't need it to be much more. No.
So I want to wind this up with a personal question. I've got to experience you on a couple of different levels over the course of the years through some of the workshops and different things like that, reading your books and listening to your podcast and blogs and things like that. Personal question for you is, when people leave a room with you or a meeting, or they've taken you in from a podcast or read your social post, what is it that you want them to feel or believe about you and how you showed up?
I don't know that I want them to believe anything about me, but immediately I can tell you, like, I want them to feel disarmingly empowered. I want them to feel like it's so obvious to me, so clear to Mike that I can do this. If he thinks that, then I can probably do it. I can give strategy, I can give tips, I can give insights, but those things don't really change people's lives, and they don't really experience it through just written content or through a screen. It's exactly what you said. People will say to me, "Hey, I've been reading your stuff. It's really helpful. It's really insightful," or that really spoke to me. But after we meet in person, it's a completely different commentary. Dude, I just love being around you and your people. I love being in your community. I just feel like everyone's so encouraging. I feel like everyone's super sharp, but also super encouraging. Like they're really successful people, but they're not a-holes. They're really kind. And y'all encourage one another. Like that's what I want them. Like you empower each other. You help each other. That's what I want them to feel. And you can't necessarily do that through just reading something. I can try my best to convey those emotions. But again, I'm only communicating through 7%. I'm breathing through a straw rather than the fullness of who we are. And I do think because of that, as AI continues to eat up whatever companies are farming out to it and losing positions and cutting back the workforce and stuff, people are going to aggregate together. Because we're human beings, we're communal beings. We need that. So that's what I want them to walk away with. I don't need them to think anything particular about me. I know I'm not always going to be everyone's cup of tea, but I do want them to feel like, I think he thinks I can do this. Maybe I should give that some consideration.
I happen to think you're a pretty good cup of tea.
Thank you.
And if other folks want to learn more about you, find some more of your thoughts and different things like that, how's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, best place is go to be newsletter, published every Tuesday, mikekim.com/letter. I have no other name for it. I just call it Mike Kim Letter. That's it. And if you are on LinkedIn, I would love to connect with you there. And the handle is just LinkedIn, and my screen is real Mike Kim TV, even though I don't have a TV show. It just was easier to remember. So you'll find me on there, linkedin.com/ whatever they have, Mike Kim TV.
All right. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate you taking your time and talking today. And I hope my listeners take the time to find more about you, do some reading up on some of the things that you have. And I can tell you, as someone who's worked around you, is that you do leave people feeling like they can go after their dreams, they can build something, and they can accomplish what they set out to do. So thank you for that too.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Culture Secrets. If today's conversation resonated with you, we'd love for you to share it with a colleague or friend. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. To learn more about building strong, people-first workplace cultures, visit ChelliePhillips.com, where you'll find resources, speaking information, and more insights from Chellie. You can also pick up a copy of Culture Secrets at your favorite online or in-person bookseller. Thanks again for listening. And remember, culture isn't something you talk about once. It's something you live every day.